Hi everyone, YouTube world. This is Higinio, and this is Higinio Talks. Right now, I want to talk about a perspective that I call the garden perspective that I came up with. It is a neat way of looking at the world, just something to always keep in mind. I might have to start editing these videos. Well, it just depends on if I mess up and what I think. I remember I either have to edit or I have to adjust my perspective on things. The world will always give us pressures, and usually what's happening is our perspective on that is what's defining it a certain way, giving it so much weight. So when we have a certain problem, it's really just that we place a lot of value on something, or we've been trained a certain way. We might have shame associated with something, or guilt. There's a lot of things that can be associated with as we're on the path to self-actualization, or just harmonizing with ourselves, being congruent inside and out. We want to be able to approach things and shed things like guilt and fear. When people talk about that, they're talking about getting rid of the association that we've been trained to have with certain concepts, whether it's everything from who we love to where we go to school, to what clothes we wear, to what kind of music we listen to. It's all been defined a certain way, or if we've been exposed to it in the past, and it has a certain association, whether we're exposed to it in words, or if we saw it somewhere, then we somehow we got an association, and sometimes it can be a negative association. It's always important to be aware of that there is an association that has to be removed in order to look at the pure concept itself. So for example, if you're looking at wealth, you got to get rid of the association you have with wealth that you've been trained to, or looking at poverty, or looking at gender issues, or gender identity, or looking at any kind of patterns or habits or anything like that. We'll dive more into that. I have digressed. I want to talk about the garden perspective. If we think about this, it can be applied to everything. Actually, everything I say can be applied to every aspect of life. I want to drive that home. Life is just one thing, and you create it. It's the faith, and it's something that you create, and then you layer understandings around it. This garden perspective is very similar to that. But it can paint certain issues and help us look at the world a certain way. So you can imagine that there's a beautiful garden, and it has all the most beautiful flowers in the world. It smells the way that the most beautiful garden in the world would smell. It's located on the most beautiful location in the world. You pretty much can imagine anything being in this garden that you would see in the most perfect garden in the world. Now, the whole thing is, you actually cannot see the garden. It is invisible. That's true to the nature of the garden. That's just how it is. Just as I am someone who is wearing this shirt right now, that garden is an invisible garden. I have black hair. That garden is invisible, and so. But it's just so beautiful, and the only way you can see it is well. There's one way you can see it. We're going to say right now, and that is if you paint it, right? You can throw paint on the garden so that you can see the whole most beautiful thing in the world and experience it. You can kind of know it's there, but so when you paint it, you can see it and you can enjoy it and then walk through it. Now, but what has happened here is something selfish. You've actually taken away from the natural identity of the garden, so that you can serve your own selfish needs. It's important to know the line where the selfishness should go or not, because a lot of the things that we do in the world do impress on others our identity, or it takes from theirs. So the garden, it can represent anybody, and the only way that we can really enjoy that garden in its true nature, and the way that the garden can be, and the way that we have to appreciate that garden, is if it remains the way that it is, and then it's invisible, without any paint on it. Because that is a selfish thing that we are doing, so to serve our need of being able to see it. Like, the key here is one thing, and that's actually faith. So you have to have faith that the garden is there, and then you can fully experience it without necessarily being able to see it. We had to get past these five senses. We are trained in a way that means that we have to experience the world in the five senses way. Now, don't get me wrong, every single thing in the five senses is very exciting. I'm sure people get excited when they do when they do drugs, or when they experience a roller coaster, or when they go fast, when they run, when they fall and they hit their face. Those are all sensations. When you hear a loud noise, it can be good or bad. We learn to associate different things with it. If someone's yelling fire, or if there's a gunshot, versus if someone is yelling dinner is ready. The garden, it represents an individuality. We have to let that individuality flourish. We can't impose ourselves on it to color it, and we can't. It just has to be a nice balance. And the only thing that can be done is faith. Now we can dive so much deeper into this garden. I wanted to kind of lay out the concept right now, just so that we kind of have an understanding of what's going on around us, and everybody just try to keep the weight off your shoulders, and be observant. Feel the world around you. This is Higinio Talks. I'll talk to you soon.